going to throw over to Shawn from FLIR to talk about thermal imaging and conservation. Do you want to take it away?
All right. Thank you, Steph. So my name is Shawn Jepson. I've worked with FLIR, which is the largest manufacturer of thermal imaging components on the planet. I've worked with them for on and off for about 15 years, but I've been doing thermal imaging for 20 or so. And by far, whenever I get to engage in a project that uses thermal imaging and conservation, it is the most fun and the most rewarding work out of anything I've done. So wanted to talk a little bit about that. Thermal imaging is in some ways kind of a new technology. It's only been around in the commercial world for about 20, 25 years, but in technology, that's like archaic too, right? So everybody kind of knows what it is, but maybe some people don't. I saw a thermographer in the comments. I was excited to see them here, but I wanted to kind of zoom out a little bit and just make sure everybody was aware of what thermal imaging is, how it works, what it does. So we're going to do a little bit of physics 101 here. You probably weren't expecting that coming to the Wild Labs, but that's where we're at. So we probably all, the electromagnetic spectrum, right? What your eyes see is that very narrow band right there, that little rainbow of colors. That's what we see when we look around the world. When we take a picture with the camera on our phone, we're looking at that little band of visible light, which is reflected energy, right? In order for us to see something, there has to be another light source, the sun, a torch, flashlight, the headlights of your car, something that's creating that light that then reflects off. That's what we see. That's what we take a picture of. That's not where thermal resides. Thermal imaging uses a much longer wavelength that your eyes cannot see. And a lot of people think about thermal imaging as seeing heat. But we kind of view heat as relative, right? If it's hotter than body temperature, we call it hot. If it's colder than body temperature, we call it cold. But to a thermal camera, everything above absolute zero is hot because what the thermal camera is looking at is emitted energy. Everything, every object, everything from liquid nitrogen to ice cubes to us to your car to lava in a volcano all emits this energy, and that's what the thermal camera is looking at. And technically calling it a camera isn't even really accurate. It's more of a detector. It's detecting this emitted energy that all objects put off. But to take that energy that we can't see and create an image that we understand, the thermal cameras do a couple of things. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. One of them is polarity, the other is palette. So if you look at the top two images on the left, you have white hot. What the camera is doing is finding the hottest thing in the image and the coldest thing. And the hottest one, it makes white. The coldest one, it makes black. There's 256 shades of gray in the grayscale, and it just spreads those out against everything else that it sees in the image. If you go to the one on the right, it's black hot. It just reverses that. The hottest pixel is black, the coldest one is white, and it spreads them out that way. So that's the polarity, and you can toggle that back and forth. It's kind of personal preference. Depending on what you're doing, it's usually you don't get a benefit over white hot versus black hot, switching the polarity. Sometimes you do in some edge cases, but for the most part, it's personal preference. And then the palette is the color palette. So the top two use the grayscale. The one on the bottom there, you see fusion. That's where it's assigning different colors. And pretty much any thermal camera you get today will allow you to toggle polarity, filter through a bunch of palettes, that kind of thing. So this is what the thermal camera is doing. And then I wanted to talk about some of the projects that people are using in conservation. One of the ones I've been lucky enough to be a part of is the Kufaru Rising project. That's been an ongoing project, a collaboration between FLIR and the World Wildlife Fund over the last 5-6 years. It's kind of coming to an end now. And it had the goal of ending poaching in Kenya, and we've seen significant success. It's been a lot of fun working on that project. But thermal imaging has been used in a lot of ways. Ocean Alliance uses it in their whale research. Here you can see a picture of a drone with a thermal camera looking down on a whale spout. They're trying to pull data out of that. They also use it in their whale surveys. They used to be able to survey whales by spout during the day, and then they had to stop at night. They now use thermal imaging at night, and they can survey all night long as well. And they found that nighttime surveys with thermal imaging are just as accurate as daytime surveys when they're just out there watching. It's used in China to monitor critically endangered white dolphins, not just finding them and counting their numbers, but also, as you can see here, it's taking temperature measurements of its dorsal fin. They do that on the tail fin. They also can infer some health information using thermal imaging. It's used to research hummingbirds. That's an exciting one. It's used for oil spill detection. Lots of times when there's oil spills in the past, they had to stop at night because they couldn't continue to work. Now with thermal imaging, they can see where the oil is at, and they can continue their efforts in a limited fashion at night as well, because they can see the oil on the water. The black-footed ferret is the most endangered mammal in North America. It was thought to be extinct for a while. Thermal imaging is playing a key part in helping survey those, find them for vaccines, that kind of thing. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. If you've seen Casey Anderson on Nat Geo, The Mountain Lion and Me, thermal imaging has enabled him to find out a lot that we didn't know about mountain lion behavior, and a lot of things there that thermal imaging helped us learn that we never would have found out otherwise. Another one is bats. That's used to research and protect bats. These are all just a handful of conservation uses that thermal imaging has played a part in. But one of the reasons I titled this presentation, Use Your Imagination, I'm collaborating with the Smithsonian Institute and the World Wildlife Fund right now. We're writing a paper on how we're using thermal imaging to in our conservation efforts for the black-footed ferret. And it really stands out to me as we've been writing that paper, the dearth of research that uses thermal imaging in conservation. There's so much that can be done that right now, we don't even know what it is. We don't know what we don't know. So I wanted to reach out to the WildLabs community and ask, think about, in the work that you're doing, in the efforts that you're undertaking, can thermal imaging help? Can it do something that maybe, we couldn't do otherwise, using this invisible light and making the unknown things known? How can we use that more? How can we expand thermal imaging's reach to help in conservation? So just think about that. Ping me. I'm on WildLabs. I'm Montana Mud on WildLabs. So ping me if you've got some ideas. Looking forward to anything that anybody has. And that's it for me. Stephanie, thank you.
Thanks, Shawn. We've already got some comments. Dan's flagged the Cacophony project that uses FLIR sensors in New Zealand, and they've also released the only thermal camera data set for folks on the AI side. So thanks.
That's right,
Dan.
Yes, thank you.
And Frank is wondering, have you tried do you know of thermal cameras being used on sloth? Frank, why are you asking about sloths in particular? Frank, you have
Yeah, there I am. Hi, it's a hobby horse. My neighbors are the Sloth Conservation Foundation in Costa Rica, and they have issues identifying sloths in the canopy. They have certain traits that make it very difficult. They're difficult to see with
Yes.
human eyes. They hardly move, so movement detection doesn't really work a lot. And apparently they have such a thick fur that they don't have a big infrared, what is it? Image?
Signature. Yeah.
Signature, thank you.
Yep.
So I was wondering what your experiences are and if you've tried.
I have not tried, and I have not heard of anybody that has, but now you piqued my interest, so I'm going to look into that, see if I can find anything on people using it for sloths.
I can get you into touch with the Sloth Conservation Foundation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If you're interested.
Yeah, I'm interested. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Nice. Okay.
Thank you.
You're getting a couple more questions in the chat, so I'm going to throw you, pass you back into the chat.
Okay.
And thank you so much, Shawn.